Hello, all CPS families. I'm Gilberto Batiz. I'm a program specialist here at Family and Community Engagement Office at Orange County Public Schools. And I want to welcome you to this special edition of our Parent Virtual Mini Academy. Whether you are tuning in live or watching the recording later at your convenience, we are so glad, really, so glad that you're here. Tonight's session is one that truly matters. Florida Financial Aid Application and Bright Futures. That's the title of our session tonight. High school students, their parents will gain information about the importance of completing the Florida financial aid application and the requirements to receive funding. This session will run consecutively. Before we dive in, I want to make sure that everything is working. So if you can hear us clearly, please drop a thumbs up in the chat using the reaction feature. To enable closed captions or translations, all that you have to do is to click the CC button and select your preferred language. That button is at the bottom. And while you are in the chat, I would like, please, to let us know what school you're joining us from tonight. So write your name and write your school, the school that your child attends to. We love to see who is here with us and which schools are represented. So please tell us on the chat where you're coming from. If you are watching this session later, because this session is going to be recorded, as I said, no worries. This full presentation is being recorded and will be available on the OCPS YouTube channel. The link is on the chat. I'm going to put it on the chat. So make sure that to subscribe and turn on the notifications. So in that way, you will never miss any of our information. So all participants have already access to PDF copy of tonight's presentations. But if you cannot find it, anyway, we are going to be sending that PDF with the full presentation in the upcoming days. But if you can find it, you can go and download it. You need to check the information page linked in your registration confirmation email. So we sent an email. In that confirmation email, you can find that materials. It's called webinar materials. And I always like to remind our families, if you have questions, if you need clarification, or there is anything else we can support you with, please feel free to send us an email anytime at parentacademy@ocps.net. Parentacademy@ocps.net. I'm going to put it in the chat in a minute. So we really, truly value your feedback and be certain that we're here to help you in any way we can. With that being said, now let's talk about tonight's panelists. We are really honored to see and welcome Mr. Pedro R. Hernandez. Pedro, say hi.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
So Pedro is the director of the Outreach Services at Florida Department of Education. So Mr. Hernandez brings extensive experience in helping students and families understand Florida's financial aid opportunities. So tonight, he will guide us and you through first the importance of completing the Florida financial aid application. He also gonna talk about the key eligibility requirements for Bright Futures. He will explain later what is that. He also will be talking about the common mistakes to avoid during the application process. And finally, he is gonna talk about steps students and families can take to ensure that they receive all the available funding that we have for you. See, his expertise will provide families with a clear, practical information to support students as they navigate the Florida financial system, which sometimes is a little, difficult to navigate. So here, I leave you in good hands. I leave you with Pedro R. Hernandez. Thank you, Pedro, for being here today.
Thank you, Mrs. Torres. And thank you all student parents for attending tonight's session. Yes, my name is Pedro R. Hernandez, or Pete Hernandez, and I am the Director of Outreach Services, and I will be providing this presentation, which, if you listen to the entire presentation, in the next 30 to 35 minutes, we're going to review everything about the Florida Bright Futures Questions, a program which will answer any and all majority of all of your questions or concerns. If you have questions or concerns, please drop them in the chat, but more than likely, we will address them during this presentation. But if we don't, at the very end, we will take your questions and answer your questions so we can provide those great answers on your behalf. So with that, without going any further, let us begin. So tonight's presentation, once again, is presented by the Office of Student Financial Assistance. That is the office that we administer over $1.2 billion in the state of Florida. Majority of that is through this Florida Bright Future Scholarship. And we're going to tell you everything about this program. So how are we going to tell you? How are we going to inform you? We are going to go and review all of the Bright Futures homepage, all the general requirements, the specific criteria by award type, and the evaluation process and how we notify you, and of course, the Florida Financial Aid application and why it is one of the basic key requirements to qualify for the Florida Bright Futures Scholarship. So with that in mind, let us review the Florida Bright Futures homepages. Now, our homepage is at Florida Student Financial Aid, sg.org. That means that on this webpage, you have a lot of wealth of information. So if you are a high school senior, this is this page where you came, and if you see at the center of that page, you're going to see first-time applicants and then create an account. This is where you're actually going to submit your Florida Financial Aid application. And on the upper right-hand side, once you submit an application, it's done by the process of creating a student account and submitting an application, a two-step process. And once you do that, on the upper right-hand side, you're logging, and this is how you gain access to all of your state scholarship and grants, especially the Florida Bright Future Scholarship. Now, this website has, on the right-hand side, has the list. This is the list of every one of our state scholarship and grants. As you can see, the second one down is the Florida Bright Futures Scholarship. If you were to click on it, you would come to this, the Florida Bright Future Student Handbook. As you can see, the student handbook is broken up into 3 chapters. Chapter 1 is your initial eligibility. This is where you're going to find absolutely everything on how to qualify when you're in high school and through your high school senior year. Chapter 2 is once you are qualified, how does it work? How do you get funding at the state college, state university, public institution, technical center, which you're attending? And chapter 3 is how do you renew that scholarship? All that information is readily available for everyone. Now, we do have additional resources, but if you focus in on those, these are scholarships. This is the scholarship that has all this information by these handbooks that you have access to at this very moment. Now, let's go talk about some of these scholarships. Now, when it comes to the Florida Bright Future Scholarship, you will be evaluated for all 4, and you're going to be awarded whichever one you qualify for the most. If you're awarded the Florida Academic Scholar or the FAS or the Florida Medallion Scholar, you can receive funding at any Florida qualifying institution for either academic or vocational. Now, for the other 2, the Florida Gold Seal CAPE Scholar and Gold Seal Vocational Scholar, that is for students who enroll in a degree program that is only a certificate program, an AAS program, or an AIS program. However, we will go in detail into what that means. But the bottom line, what you need to know is that you're going to be evaluated for the highest level, the Florida Academic, Florida Medallion, or for all, whether you're going into academic or vocational. The bottom 2, the Florida Gold Seal CAPE and Gold Seal Vocational, are strictly for vocational studies. Now, when it comes to the general requirements, there are a couple things that you absolutely need to understand. One, in order to receive actual funding, you need to meet all the specific requirements and these general requirements. These general requirements are: 1, you need to be a Florida resident and a U.S. citizen. or an eligible non-citizen to actually receive funding. Now those particular criteria are going to be checked when you actually go to your college, university, or technical center. When you enroll, they're going to ask you for these, and that is how and who is going to document whether you're a U.S. citizen, eligible non-citizen, or and a Florida resident. Now, the second requirement is you have to be and complete a Florida financial aid application. Yes, so every student can submit a Florida financial aid application, because in order to complete a Florida financial aid application, you can fill it out with a social security number, with your student ID, and if you prefer not to use either of those, you them will assign you a pseudo number, because every high school qualifying senior can submit this application. And as since this application is a requirement, you can submit it once again with a social security number, with your student ID number, or leave it blank and the system will assign you a pseudo number. Now, in addition to that, the third requirement is yes, you do have to graduate with either a Florida Standard High School Diploma or its equivalent. Once again, those are the first three requirements. Now, the next three requirements are you cannot have found guilty or pleaded to a felony charge. The next requirement is once you are enrolled at a college, university, or technical center, you have to enroll at a Florida institution and enroll as a degree-seeking student at that institution for at least half time. What does that mean? A traditional school, that means at least 6 non-remedial semester credit hours, or if you're going to a technical center, it's clock hour equivalent. Now, those are the general requirements. Now let's talk about the specific requirements. Let's first break it down between the Florida Academic and Florida Medallion. First, when it comes to the Florida Academic Scholar and Florida Medallion Scholar, there's 5 criteria that needs to be met. The first criteria is when it comes to classes, the actual required classes. You're going to see that we have 16 required courses. Those are 4 in English, 4 credits in math, 3 credits in natural science, 3 credits in social science, and 2 credits in foreign language. Now, what does that mean? That within those 16 core classes, the students have to earn a weighted GPA for the Florida Academic of a 3.5 GPA. For the Florida Medallion, the student needs to earn a 3.0 GPA in those 16 core classes. Now, the next thing is qualifying test scores. The student can qualify with either taking the ACT, CLT, or SAT. And we have every year we print out the test scores that are required for the 25-26 high school graduates, which this year is a 29 ACT, a 95 CLT, or a 1330 SAT. For next year's seniors, that means this year's juniors, you have the requirements for the 26-27 graduating class of a 29 ACT, a 95 CLT, or a 1330 SAT. For the Florida Medallion, those test scores are as follows. For this year's high school graduates, that is a 24 ACT, a 82 CLT, or a 1190 for your SAT. Now, in addition to that, you have to have qualifying service hours. Service hours are made up of either volunteer hours or approved paid work hours, or a combination of both. For the Florida Academic Scholar, you need to have 100 hours of service or 100 paid work hours. And we say, why are they approved paid work hours? Because you have to talk to your counselor to see what hours, both volunteer or approved paid work hours, do count for service hours when it comes to Bright Futures. Now, in addition to that, if you want a combination of both, they will, as long as you have 100 total hours between service hours and paid work hours, yes, that does also count and meet the requirement. Now, you have to please note that all this information, traditionally, if you're at a public institution, will come directly on your high school transcript. That is the classes, the GPA, the service hours. Now, the test scores, those will have to come directly when you send those. Now, how do you get those into the test repository? There are three ways to send them. When it comes to either the SAT, CLT, or SAT, if you send them officially to either one of the 12 state universities in this area, that would be UCF. You don't have to go there, you don't have to attend there, but if you send your test scores to UCF, we will be able to receive them. If you send them locally here to any of the 28 state colleges in the state of Florida, or for you guys here, either Valencia, Seminole State, though we will also receive those test scores. Or if, for example, for the SAT or CLT, you can send them directly. There is a drop-down box, and they can be sent directly for Bright Futures evaluation. Now, it is vitally important that you understand that anytime you take any one of these three exams, if you take them multiple times, you will receive what's called a super score. And yes, we take that super score into consideration, and that super score is made up of the best subcomponent of each of those exams. That means that if you take any ACT, CLT, or SAT several times, please ensure that you send every one of those test scores to the test repository, and we will receive them and we will do the calculation. Because if you only send a test score with the super score, we will only receive the test score that you received for that test taking date. So, bottom line, we will do and evaluate you based on your super score if you send all of your test scores to us. Now, vitally important, when you do send those test scores officially to either a state college, state university, or directly to us, make sure that your name and address is exactly the same address that is on your high school transcript. That makes it very easy to match that information. Now, as indicated earlier, I said there were 5 things. So here you see your classes, their GPA, your test scores, and your service hours. The 5th and final thing is your actual Florida financial aid application. So that is one way that we actually look at your test scores. Now, when we look at your GPA, when it comes to the classes that you take, if you take honors classes, pre-IB, pre-ACE, AP, dual enrollment, IB, ACE, those classes that are higher level classes, which are way for your purposes for evaluation. Therefore, you do have the ability to, when you take these classes, we'll help you provide that required GPA for the Bright Futures Scholarship. Now, when it comes to these exams, if you ask, how do we determine those test scores? For the Florida Academic Scholar, those are set at the 89th national percentile between the SAT, CLT, and SAT. For the Florida Medallion, they are set at the 75th national percentile. So that is how we derive those qualifying test scores for the Florida Bright Future for any one of the tests, whether that's an ACT, CLT, or SAT. Here, these are a requirement in order to submit and actually qualify for the Florida Bright Futures Scholarship. Now, you as high school seniors for the 25-26 year, you have until August 31st of your graduation year. What does that mean? That's August 31st of 2026. That means that's beyond high school. You might be in summer school, you might be in your fall semester. However, if the only thing missing is for you to qualify for a Florida Bright Future Scholarship or to move from one level to another, yes, you have until August 31st. And you could, once again, you don't have to do anything special. All you have to do is send your official test score to the test repository. Once again, we will take that into consideration. Now, once again, we are going to request all of your test scores to be sent to us, not your super score, because we will take your super score, but we need all of those subtests that make up the super score in order to evaluate you. Service hours, once again, we ask you to talk to your counselors and make sure A, that you document those hours, and B, that they are qualifying hours, because it is your school district and your counselors that determine the date and what hours do or do not qualify. So just make sure that you meet with your counselors to ensure that that information is being communicated and you're meeting that requirement as well. Now, let's talk about the Bright Future requirements for Go Seal Cape and the Go Seal Vocational Scholarship. When it comes to the Go Seal Cape, the Cape Scholarship, you would have to earn a minimum of 5 post-secondary credits through Cape Industry Certifications, which articulate to college credit. That means that when you're in high school, if you take any certification that amounts or equals to college credit, and they total or max out or meet the minimum requirement of 5 post-secondary credits, and you do 30 volunteer hours or 100 paid work hours or a combination of 100 paid and volunteer hours, you qualify for this scholarship. Once again, this is the Florida Go Seal Cape Scholar. I'll tell you what it pays a little bit later on in this presentation. Now, in order to qualify for the Florida Go Seal Cape Scholar, once again, this is only going to be if you enroll as in a career certificate education program, an AAS, or an AS program. That means that when you finish your certificate, your AAS, or your AS program, that means if you then enroll in a Bachelor's of Science, you could then get a 60 additional credit hours towards your bachelor's degree. Once again, all this information is available on our student handbook, so you are aware of this. Now, when it comes to the Go Seal Vocational Scholarship, this is another level of the scholarship. In order to meet this scholarship requirement, you have to achieve a minimum of 3.0 GPA in all your high school non-elective courses. You have to complete at least 3 full and career technical education credits. And in those 3 full career and educational credits, you have to get or obtain a 3.5 unweighted GPA. You have to achieve the minimum required either SAT or SAT or Florida PERT exam, which is the post-secondary educational readiness test. And you have to complete at least 30 service hours or 100 paid work hours or a combination of 100 hours or more. Now, in addition to that, these are the qualifying test scores that you would need to meet in order to qualify for the Go Seal Vocational Scholarship. Once again, because you have access to this presentation, whether it is today or you go online, you're going to see all of this information readily available. Now, when it comes to the Go Seal Vocational and Go Seal Cape, they both are going to, once again, upon high school graduation, if you enroll in an applied technology diploma, a technology degree diploma, or an associate's in applied science, or an associate in science, or certificate program, it is only those that are going to fund the Go Seal Vocational and Go Seal Cape Scholarship. So just want to make sure that you understand that if you have one of these awards and you enroll as an AA degree seeking student, you will not receive funding. It is based on the award that you receive and how you enroll at the post-secondary institution, whether that's the college, university, or technical center. Now, the districts it's very important. The districts are required to provide you both your GPA, that is a Bright Futures GPA, versus an overall GPA. That's why you meet with your high school counselor and they will provide you that information. Now, in addition to that, make sure that they can provide you official Bright Futures evaluation because they have the ability to do so. Make sure that you meet with them and you know exactly, if you're a high school senior, what you need to meet before you graduate. If you're an underclassman, whether you're a sophomore, a freshman, sophomore, or junior, make sure that you understand exactly where you are so you can map out the next couple of years, meet all of the requirements, and therefore qualify for a scholarship. Now, very important, when it comes to new legislation, just want to assure that we now added different ways to qualify, because the ones we just reviewed is just one way to qualify, but there are additional qualification paths. Now, one of them is the advanced placement capstone requirements. That means that this year if you see our page, if you qualify by meeting or obtaining a National Merits Finalist or Scholars designation, you receive your AP Capstone Diploma, your ACE or Advanced International Certificate of Education Diploma, or International Baccalaureate Diploma or IB Diploma. That means that you automatically qualify. And if you provide these service hours or work hours, you qualify for either the Florida Academic or Florida Medallion. So we given you this information. So if you, once again, if you are a National Merit Finalist, an AP Capstone Diploma, an ACE Diploma recipient, or an IB Diploma recipient, that automatically qualifies you once you receive those designations and you submit your service hours and you graduate officially from a Florida high school. Now, as you can see, the AP Capstone, because it's brand new, it is only going to qualify you for the Florida Academic Scholarship. Just want to absolutely make sure that all students understand this new legislation. Now, when it comes to this, the Capstone Diploma, these are just the backgrounds of what made it happen when it comes to legislative requirements. But it states that in order to qualify, if students began high school before 2025, 2026, this is what a capstone diploma requirements are going to qualify you for the Florida Bright Future Scholarship. You're going to have to complete 100 service or paid work hours and receive an AP capstone diploma, which a student has to earn a score of 3 or higher on both AP Seminar and AP Research, and a score of 8.3 higher on any additional 4 AP exams of your choosing. That's this high school seniors. Anybody beforehand, anybody from your sophomore, junior years, when it comes to when they become a diploma recipient, they need to complete 100 of paid or service hours and receive an AP Capstone Diploma, which a student must earn a 3 or higher on both AP Seminar and AP Research, and then earn a score of 3 or higher on any 3 AP exams in high school graduation requirements in English language, English language arts, mathematics, science, or social studies, and earn a 3 or higher on 1 AP exam in a subject of the student's choice. Now, to make it easier, we've given you a chart. So this is the year that you entered ninth grade. These are your graduation years, and these are your requirements. So basically, as you can see, anybody that is right now a senior, junior, or sophomore, these are your requirements. When it comes to the 28, 29, and thereafter, that means that graduation year, if you're a freshman this year, these are your capstone requirements. They're very different, but we want to make sure that you understand the difference, and we provide you exactly what that means. Now, the recipient of the capstone designation alone doesn't satisfy these requirements. Remember, you still have to earn a high school diploma. Now, what happens and how do we award you? When it comes to the traditional way, we will always evaluate you traditionally. But then when we look at you for AP Capstone, National Merit, ICE, or IB diploma recipients, we do that evaluation in late summer. That means late July, early August. That is when we're going to do that evaluation for those specific students. So just make sure if you are qualifying for the Florida Bright Future Scholarship by earning a National Merit, an ISB diploma, an ACE diploma, or a new capstone diploma, that evaluation is going to take place in late July, early August at the latest. Now, how do we do that? When do we evaluate you? Well, there are 2 basic evaluation periods: early evaluation, final evaluation. And that means that transcripts, once they're submitted to us 30 days after each semester, that means the fall semester and the spring semester, that's early evaluation and that's final evaluation. Then we do those evaluations. And thereafter, we'll do the evaluations to make sure if you've taken any other test scores, we're posting that information to your accounts and notifying the schools that you have on your application. So what does that mean? Early evaluation is for students who have completed their Florida financial aid application, and once again, no later than May 31st may be included in the early application. We're going to look at all your classes that you take in now and those that you have in progress for the final semester. We're going to look at your grade point average, the number of service hours, and all the exams that you taken through January 31st of 2026. So that means anybody who was in school from August through December and taking test scores through January 31st, we will do the evaluation and post it to your account in the next couple of weeks here. Now, in addition to that, we'll do the same thing against after you graduate high school. That period will begin in mid-June. That means that if you submitted your Florida financial aid application, you have all your exams already taken through and no later than August 31st, and you complete the required coursework and you achieve the grade point average and complete those service hours, we do those evaluations constantly all the way up through August 31st of 2026. So you do not need to have notify your counselors. Once again, how you get those test scores is to us. How you have your once again, your transcript is going to be sent by your school when it comes to the classes, GPA, and service hours. That's why it's important that you check with your counselors to see when those deadlines are, so that is included in that final transcript. Now, in order for us to check all this information, you will have to submit an account. That means you will have to create an account. That means you will have to submit an application. That means that you create the user ID and password. It will automatically be sent to you. And once again, when it comes to ACE, IB, or Capstone, these will be notified later by late July, but you still have all the way up through August 31st to either submit your application or to take qualifying test scores. Now, how much does it pay? When it comes to the Florida Academic Scholar, it's going to pay 100% of tuition and specific fees. When it comes to the Florida Medallion, it's going to pay 75% of tuition and specific fees at that institution. We're not talking about the overall cost. We are talking about just 100% of tuition and specific fees and 75% of tuition and specific fees. Now, this is at a public institution. And if you are awarded the Florida Medallion Scholar, and if you start at one of the 28 state colleges, so if you start locally here at Valencia or Seminole or Lake Sumter or Daytona State, you will get 100% of tuition and fees until you get your AA or your AS degree when it comes to the Florida Academic or Florida Medallion Scholar. Now, you will receive the equivalent dollar amount at a private institution in the state of Florida. So if you were to go to Rollins College or Full Sail, those institutions are private, non-for-profit, or private for-profit. You will receive the equivalent dollar amount for those scholarships at those institutions. But also note, please note, that the GOCEO and GOCEO Vocational are only awarded amount at the actual AAS certificate programs or AS degree programs. Now, let's talk about filling out the Florida financial aid application. Very important. When we are talking about the Florida financial aid application, this is a Florida application. Please do not confuse this one with the FAFSA, which is a free application for federal student aid. Those are two separate applications. However, if you fill out those applications, both the FAFSA and the Florida financial aid application, you will be evaluated for all federal funds, all state funds, and all institutional funds. Once again, let me repeat that again. If you fill out the Florida financial aid application and the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, you'll be evaluated for all federal funds, all state funds, all institutional funds. Now, this application, once again, high school seniors, it opened up on October 1st of 2025 and is only to be filled out by high school seniors. So next year's seniors, that's October 1 of 2026, which is just a couple months away. And the closing date of this year's seniors is August 31st of 2026. However, like we've talked about earlier and communicated earlier, if you don't fill out your application, you will not get evaluated for Bright Futures. If you miss the August 31st deadline, you will not receive any Bright Futures because it is a requirement to fill out the Florida financial aid application to receive Florida Bright Futures. Now, why do we call it the Florida financial aid application and not, once again, not the Bright Futures application? Because the Florida financial aid application is a requirement for all of these scholarships. The Florida Bright Futures Scholarship, the Rosewood Family Scholarship, the Florida Farm Workers Student Scholarship, the Randolph Obracio Coe Scholarship, and the Scholarship for Children and Spouses of Deceased or Disabled Veterans. All of these scholarships, you're considered, in addition to all the other state scholarships and grants, if you fill out, once again, both the Florida Financial Aid application and the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Now, let me make this very clear. You are not required to fill out the FAFSA in order to receive other state scholarships and grants, or even the Bright Futures. However, you are required, once again, let me repeat this, you are required to fill out the Florida Financial Aid application if you want to receive the Florida Bright Future Scholarship, the Rosewood Family Scholarship, the Florida Farm Workers Student Scholarship, the Randolph Obracio Coe Scholarship, and the Scholarship for Children and Spouses of Deceased or Disabled Veterans. Remember, the Florida Financial Aid application, it is a mandatory, legislatively required application to receive these specific scholarships. Now, let's look at the application process. Very simple. Once again, it is a two-step process. You're going to create a student account and complete the Florida Financial Aid application. Where are you going to go? Once again, to our website, Florida Student Financial Aid, sg.org. Once again, the very center of it, that's where you create an account, submit your application. Upper right-hand side, you see that's the login. Once you create an account, you could always come back and check your account information. Now, this is what's going to look like. You're going to submit your profile. Now, because you are now being treated like a young adult, a responsible young adult, please complete this with correct information, your correct social security number. Do not guess. Use your legal first and last name. Make sure you submit all this information correctly, because these are legal applications. This is going to be used to match up with your high school transcript and provide it to the college. So the more accurate information you have, the less mismatches that we have, the less problems you have. It becomes so much easier to evaluate you. Make sure that you are submitting the information correctly. Now, this is all the information that's submitted. You're going to submit your demographic information. Then you're going to submit all your academic information. Then this is your academic background. You're going to be evaluated for if you have the CSDDV, if you have the Florida, the Farm Workers Scholarship, a COE Scholarship. And once you go through and answer all of the questions correctly, you can actually acknowledge and submit. If you click submit, that means your application has been completed. Now, we do understand and know that a lot of your students have already submitted this application because it takes anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to complete. But it's ultimately the student's responsibility to make sure that you have completed this application and it is filled out correctly. Because if you have, that means that you could always go back to our website, submit this, go back in, check your demographic information, and if it is wrong, you could update that demographic information. So make sure that you are going back, and now because you're responsible, you're a young adult, we will also let you know on this website when your Bright Futures evaluations are completed, and if you're evaluated during that early semester and you're eligible, that means that when you graduate, that information is going to automatically transmit to that school that you have listed on this application. That's also very important that now as a young responsible adult, you listed the schools that you would want to go to. It's ultimately your responsibility to log back in and make sure that the school that you are now going to is exactly listed in the first position. If not, update it, and that ensures that we will notify that school that you're eligible. So when you go to that institution, we will provide the school what's called your name and your information on the master eligibility list. They will get that information. And now that institution is going to check whether you are, once again, a Florida resident, a U.S. citizen, or an eligible non-citizen. And from that point, they will disperse the funds, once again, based on if you are 100% a Florida academic student, a medallion student, or the equivalent dollar amount at a private institution. Now, once you hit submit, you will see the results. It will tell you exactly, as an applicant, as a student, you know you have submitted this application and what programs you're going to be evaluated for. So all that information is readily available. It's to you. Now, this is our website, florida.org. This is our 1-800 line, the 888-827-2004 line. We have our email and we have our website. But we can also provide you great information when it comes to who the contacts are. And I will be able to provide my contact for you. But at this time, Mr. Torres, I will take any question or concern that you have or that anybody has when it comes to this presentation.
Yeah. Hi. Well, we have several questions. Do you hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Do you hear? Yeah, we have several questions, so I'm gonna start with the last questions back to the front. So the first one here is, may the FFAA application be submitted before taking the SAT, CLT, or ACT exam?
That is correct. So the Florida Financial Aid application, we always get this question quite a bit. The application is going to open up during the student's senior year. That means that for this year's seniors, that opened up October 1st of 2025, and the last date is August 31st of 2026. However, if a student, a high school senior, filled it out on October 1, all that means is that application is complete. They haven't still traditionally until high school graduation to complete all their classes, their GPA, their service hours. The student has until high school deadline, which is August 31st of 2026. So, yes. So let's say a high school junior is coming up. When does their application open up? Of when? When does it close? August 31st of 2027. Now, that is vitally important because once again, that application is just a requirement. So if they do it, it's checked off. So that the answer is yes. Students can fill it out as early as October 1, and that's the opening date, and as late as August 31st, that is the deadline.
Question, where do we find information on approval of the Bright Futures grant?
Right. So once again, with a student, when they actually sign up, they submit their application, they create a user ID and password. They now have an account where they can log in on our website, and we will provide that information to both to the student and to the school once the student is made eligible. So the student now, as a responsible young adult, has access to that information.
All right. What are the SAT exam score requirements for IB students for FAS and FMS?
Correct.
What are the exam requirements?
Correct. So let's go back to page 4 of our student handbook. As you can see, a student who is either a National Merit, an AP Capstone, an ACE, or an IB Diploma student, does not need any qualifying test scores. If they receive those designations and graduate and do their service hours and submit their application, they will qualify for either the Florida Academic or Florida Medallion Scholar. And remember, those students are going to be evaluated in late July, early August.
All right, excellent. All right, if a student goes to college out of the state and then returns, can they use these scholarships anytime within
Yes,
5 years?
that is
Right.
correct. So this is very important.
Excellent.
Upon high school graduation, and this goes back to chapter 2. On chapter 2, you're going to see the scholarship information. So that means is you're going to see here where a Bright Futures recipient upon high school graduation establishes the following parameters. They're eligible to receive the Florida Bright Futures, either whichever comes first, either up to 5 years of academic funding after high school graduation, or until they receive up to 120 credit hours within that 5-year period, or if they get their baccalaureate degree, that stops their funding. However, if they get their first baccalaureate degree or bachelor's degree and they utilized less than 105 of our credit hours or done it in 7 semesters or less within that 5-year period, we will fund their first semester of graduate school at the undergraduate rate. Now, once again, let me repeat that. Upon high school graduation, the student establishes the following parameters. They establish either a 5-year period of eligibility or up to 120 credit hours of our funding, or until they get their first baccalaureate degree. And if they get that first baccalaureate degree and use less than 105 of our hours, or do it in 7 semesters or less, we will pay for their first semester of graduate school. Now, what does that mean? Say a student graduates high school, goes out of state, goes up to NYU, goes up to University of Michigan, and including the Florida financial aid application, and they come back. Yes, the student has that 5-year period of eligibility. So if they're gone for a year, 2 years, 3 years, when they come back, they can reinstate their scholarship for that remaining period of that 5-year period of eligibility.
Right, thank you. Now, Jen, don't worry. Jen is writing that she thought that it started at 6:30, so miss most of it. Don't worry, we will receive copy of the presentation by email. We're gonna use the email that you used to register. Right now, another question here: are junior students able to apply?
No, juniors right now are not able to apply. The application is only valid for high school seniors, and that is on October 1st of their senior year. So this year's juniors right now, they are still ineligible to apply. That means that, however, on October 1st of 2026, they are now seniors. That is the opening date for that application. So the October 1, 2026 is the opening date for this year's juniors. Next year's seniors. Only seniors must apply for their Florida financial aid application.
Thank you, Pedro. Now, Jose Martinez is asking, may the FFAA application be submitted before taking the SAT, CLT, ACT exams?
No, absolutely not. Remember, the student can submit that application as early as October 1 of their senior year, and they have the deadline to take exams is August 31st of 2026.
All
So,
right,
say
thank
the
you.
student submits their application, they still have until August 31st of 2027. My apologies, August 2027 to actually take a test and qualify for the Florida Bright Future Scholarship.
Thank you. Now, can
Not
you super score between different tests like Highest Math from SAT and Highest English from ACT? Can you super score
no,
like combine?
we I do apologize. No, we can only super score within that same exam. We do not super score through different exams. We only super score within that same exam. So the super score, the best subcomponents for either the ACT, CLT, or SAT, but not combined between the exams themselves.
All right, Carmen Albert is asking if her daughter is a junior and she will be able to apply. I think that you said already that it has to be a senior, right?
That is correct. October 1 of 2026.
All right, let me see. Uh, and I know that this is a lot of information for all of you, parents and families, but don't worry, you will receive, as I said, copy of this presentation either by email or in your confirmation email. When you registered, you receive a confirmation email, and there's a part that it says webinar documents. It should be there. If it's not there, you're gonna receive it by email, to the email that you use when you registered. All right, let me see.
Correct. And
Uh,
and
uh,
Mr. Torres,
uh,
let me also emphasize right now, students,
mm,
if you go to our website, if you click the Bright Futures tab, you have access right now to the Bright Futures Student Handbook. All the requirements, all chapter 2, the scholarship information, all the renewal requirements. And at the bottom, as you can see, we have our Bright Futures flyers. We have a one-page snapshot. So if you go to our website right now, you have access to all of this information that we just reviewed.
Oh, excellent. So if a seniors have a degree after graduation, then it means that it will be covered first year of graduation school or second year as well.
No, no, no. Remember, a high school student who is taking college classes is still a high school student. So student graduates high school and at the same time receives their AA. Let's take that example. The student still has those parameters. They have either up to 5 years of funding or up to 120 credit hours of our funding or until they get their first baccalaureate degree, whichever comes first. So, therefore, the student decides, and once they know this information, they can utilize this to their best ability, however it fits their educational needs. So, a high school student taking college classes is still a high school student. When they graduate, whether they have 1 or 90 hours, those parameters still apply to those students. So, the students, once again, if they graduate high school, then whatever, how many credit hours they have, those are not our credit hours. Those are through dual enrollment or club hours. Those do not count. Our Bright Future Scholarship sets the parameters at whichever comes first, either 5 years of funding after high school graduation, or up to 120 credit hours of our funding, or until they get their first baccalaureate degree. Now, remember, that is the parameters, but students still have to enroll for at least 6 credit hours and be a degree seeking student to receive funding. So that is vitally important.
All right. So Leticia Cortez is asking the FFAA deadline being April 1st is only the deadline for seniors graduating
No, no,
May
no.
2026, right?
No, no,
Okay.
no. No. The April 1st deadline is priority funding for those other scholarships. That is not a deadline. Bright Futures deadline is August 31st of the student's high school senior year.
Okay, excellent. Now, where to find information about the AP capstone?
Right. Once again, all that information is in chapter 1 of our initial eligibility student handbook. All that information that I just went over in our presentation is on, once again, in that initial eligibility chapter, readily for you to review at this moment.
So Pedro, when they receive the PDF of the presentation, I guess there's a link to that handbook that you're talking about.
That is correct. There's multiple links and to both the handbook and our federal legislation that covers and oversees all of our programs.
All right, Fatiha is asking, is it enough to submit only FFAA or should submit FAFSA as well?
Right. Once again, we our job is we do not advise students. Our job is to provide you all the facts so you proceed how you see fit. However, if you want to qualify and receive funding for the Florida Bright Future Scholarship and all of those other 4 scholarships, the Florida Financial Aid application is a requirement. The FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, it is completely up to the student. However, if the student would like to be evaluated for all additional federal funds, state funds, institutional funds, yes, the student would have to fill out a FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid.
I can see. Jolanda, you said that you did not receive the PDF with your registration confirmation. It's okay. You will be receiving a PDF copy of the presentation also in your email. We're gonna send an email with the presentation in the upcoming days. You know, it takes like 48 hours for you to receive that to the email that you use when you register to this session. Now we have also Ileana Hernandez. She is asking if my daughter is doing the capstone diploma, when she will know the approved 100% Bright Future.
Correct. So, once again, on our Bright Futures Chapter 1 initial eligibility, we state that whether the student is receiving a capstone diploma, an IB diploma, or an ACE diploma, we will get notification directly from those agencies that the student, you as a student, you're going to get confirmation and your counselors are going to get confirmation much earlier. But for Bright Futures purposes, we will be providing that evaluation for your student if they are only receiving and qualifying for Bright Futures if they receive either the capstone, their ACE, or their IB diploma in late July, early August. That means that we'll receive it, we'll evaluate it, we'll post it to the student's account, and we'll notify the post-secondary institution, that means the college, university, or technical center, that that information has been processed and that the student is eligible. So once again,
Right.
we advise students that now that you know this, make sure that you as a responsible young adult are notifying your institutions, because remember, the schools are not going to know if you're Bright Futures recipient if you're waiting to qualify with an ACE, IB, or IB diploma. That means that you will communicate with the financial aid office at those colleges, universities, technical centers, and let them know and make arrangements so they could provide you options such as providing such a tuition waiver, or you could pay those funds and then you're going to be reimbursed if you are indeed eligible. So that way you're not incurring any
Right.
late fees or you're not being dropped from those classes.
Now I have Nelisa. She's asking, my older son is studying at UF using Bright Futures. He will start graduating school at UF next school year. Can he use Bright Futures for his first year as a graduate at the graduate school?
Yes,
I
if
mean,
he
with
meets
respect to
right. Once again, if the student upon when they graduated high school and they went on to get their baccalaureate degree, used less than 105 of our credit hours or did it in 7 semesters or less, yes, the student can, and they're within that 5-year period, yes, the student can receive 1 semester of graduate school funding at the undergraduate rate. If they meet those
perfect.
requirements, yes.
Perfect. Now, Donna is asking, if my daughter is waiting for her green card, can she use her I number in place of the SSN?
Yes. When it comes to the Florida financial aid application, any student can either fill it out with, we don't recommend the TIN number for identification. We only recommend either their social security number, their student number, or if they don't have any of those, leave it blank. We will assign a pseudo number, a, a placeholder number, to have the student and give the student the ability to actually fill out the Florida financial aid application. Now, what that ensures, if the student has met all of the requirements, academic requirements in order to qualify, they've established, no matter what the situation is for that student, they've established a 5-year period of eligibility. If a student doesn't meet either the U.S. citizen, eligible non-citizen, and a Florida resident, but they've established that 5-year period of eligibility, if they regain that within that 5-year period, they can then reinstate their Bright Future Scholarship from that period going forward for that remainder 5-year period. Once again, let me repeat that. So any high school student, we ask them to complete a Florida financial aid application. That ensures that they've established a 5-year period of eligibility. That means that if they are not a U.S. citizen, eligible non-citizen, or Florida resident, but that gets established within that 5-year period, the student can, by meeting all those requirements, including submitting an application, reinstate their Bright Future Scholarship for that remaining period of whatever's left of that 5-year period of eligibility.
Which answers also Rocia's question. Now, we don't have that much time because we have to get ready for the Spanish version of this session. It's going to start at 7. I put the link in the chat already, but let me ask one last question that I have here from R. Whiteman, and it says, if a student has the academic score with no limited volunteer hours, can they still qualify or get partial funding?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again? If the student has...
If a student has the academic score with no limited volunteer hours, can they still qualify or get partial funding?
No. When it comes to the Bright Future Scholarship, remember there are 5 criteria to be met. If any one criteria is not met, the student will not qualify. That's what we ask him. And that's why you students, and you came to this session to completely understand that there are 5 criteria to traditionally meet the Bright Future Scholarship. They have to have their classes, their GPA, their service hours, traditionally by high school graduation. They have to have their application, once again, by August 31st of 2026, and they have to have qualifying test scores. And once again, they have until August 36th to have those qualifying test scores and send those to, once again, a state college, state university, or directly to us so we could then get evaluated.
All right, so Pedro, thank you very much. I know that many of you still have many questions, but again, as I said, you are gonna be receiving copy of this presentation with links and I guess phone numbers, right, that they can call to get the information that you need.
That is correct, Mr. Torres. And that means that at the very end, I just teased you and you're going to have my direct contact, my direct phone number, my direct email. So that will ensure that if you have additional questions or concerns, you will reach out to us either through the 88 line or directly to me. I am responsible to answer any and all of your questions.
All right. So if you're here tonight, families, and found this information helpful for your student, your family, or even a friend, we would love you. We would love to invite you to our next in-person Parent Academy event. It's gonna be celebrated on Saturday, April 18, from 10 to 1. Again, Saturday, April 18 from 10 to 1. It's going to be at Glenbridge Middle School. It's called OCPS Parent Academy ESC Transition Fair. We're going to be covering some of this information there as well. And then if you, it's open to all the students, but especially students in the exceptional student education program and from K to 12, and they're going to be receiving valuable information, resources and tools, community partners, presentations that are talking about the transition planning, guidance to help your students to prepare for the next chapter in their life. So please come and join us. And again, you can contact us at OCPS Parent Academy at ocps.net, and there you can have all the information. I'm trying to put your information here in the chat. Let me see if I can. It's there. So I'm gonna send all the information for you to contact Pedro is in the chat. So once again, thank you very much, Pedro, for your contribution. I'm sure that you have still many questions, but again, we're here to help you. If you have any other questions or you need additional support, you just call us at Parent Academy. This is the Family and Community Engagement Office. We are at the Orange County Public School building downtown. Just go to our website and we